In topic 3, we talk about environmental choices. We all depend on nature. When you think of where does your food come from? A lot of people would say it comes from the grocery store. Where does your water come from? Well, it comes from the tap, of course. Where does your waste go? Well, we have a couple places our waste goes. It can get flushed down the toilet, or it can go in the trash can. And for a lot of us, that's as deep as our thinking goes in our everyday life. Oh, we get our food from the store, need more water, just turn on the tap. Need to get rid of something, just throw it in the garbage. We often fail or forget to look beyond our immediate circumstances, and that causes us to think that we aren't impacting our environment a lot of the times. Our food doesn't simply come from the grocery store. Okay, it comes from fields far away. It has to be transported, has to be grown. There are fertilizer plants that are responsible for producing fertilizer for the farmers to put on their fields to grow your groceries, basically. There's processing plants for all the foods that we eat. Water doesn't simply come from the tap. There's water treatment plants, comes from our local rivers and streams. But there's processes involved and environmental impacts involved every time we take water from the environment. And waste doesn't simply just go down the toilet or into the trash. It ends up back into the environment again. Everything we flush down our toilet eventually has to get back into the environment. Somehow we have to do something with it. So there's sewage treatment, and our solid waste goes to landfills. So really, when we're talking about environmental choices in this topic, we're talking about looking beyond our everyday and really thinking about the impact that we're having on the environment in all the choices that we make. When it comes to thinking about our use of resources, we have to think about a word called sustainability. If the earth can't replace the resources that we're using as fast as we use them, or faster, and it can't completely absorb all the wastes that we produce, then we're not living in a sustainable manner. So sustainability means that our resources are being renewed as quickly as we're using them, and that our wastes are being absorbed into the environment. So for example, our trees, can they grow back as fast as we cut them down? Do we replant them as quickly, and do they grow quicker than we actually cut them down? Fisheries. Do we harvest fish faster than they can grow, faster they can replace their populations? There's a lot of concern about how fast we are harvesting fish. Oil is a natural resource, but it's a non-renewable resource because it can't replace itself as quick as we can use it up. So it's non-renewable. It takes thousands and millions of years for oil to form. Wonder we're just going to run out of it. So each of us has an individual impact on the environment. If you take into account all the land and water that's necessary to supply all the resources that you use and to absorb all the waste that you produce, then that's something called your ecological footprint. Now, our choices determine whether we have a large ecological footprint or a small ecological footprint. Let's look at a couple examples. So here's an example of a household that would probably have a larger ecological footprint, probably not too different than a lot of us or a lot of people that we know. 3-car garage in their house, huge home. There's an air conditioner on the outside of the house, mowing the lawn with a big tractor lawnmower, constantly watering the grass, all sorts of lights on the outside of the house. Look at the amount of trash being put out of the curb. The boat, big toy, big satellite, probably have TV running in the house all the time. 2 chimneys. This family, looks like 2 people, would have a very large ecological footprint. The next example, in about the same area, we've got quite a few more homes. We got lots of trees. In the last example, we didn't see very many trees. There's one little bush kind of in the backyard here. Back to the other example. We've got a garden being grown here that's useful. This person won't have to go to the store for as much of their food. They get to grow some of their own. Rather than having 3 vehicles or 3 garages, none of these houses have garages. This man's riding the bus, this guy's riding his bike, walking and running, cutting their grass with a lawnmower that doesn't require gasoline. Lawnmowers are actually really bad on gasoline and one of the bigger polluters that there are. So this scene shows people that are having a much smaller impact on their environment, and each of these people in this scene would have a smaller ecological footprint because they require less an area of the earth in order to provide for themselves and for their needs. This picture, another one from the textbook. I've got 3 pictures here, one of a biker, one of a guy riding a bus, and one of a guy driving a car. And this is a great example of how to affect your ecological footprint. If all 3 of the examples here, a bike, a bus, and car, were to have a 10-kilometer trip to work and back each day, the ecological footprint of this biker would be about 122 meters squared, which is about the size of a classroom. Now, the ecological footprint of just this simple activity of going to work every day on the bus compared to a bike would be about 303 meters squared, or about 3 classrooms. Now, the last example, a single person riding their car to work and back every day by themselves would have an ecological footprint of about 1,530 meters squared, which is about 15 classrooms. And that's just this one activity of getting to work and back each day. That's how much of an ecological footprint each of those activities would have. If you combine all the different activities that we all do every day, all day long, then you can see how our ecological footprints can become quite large. And these, of course, they include all of the resources that are required even to just build the bicycle, the bus, the car, all the energy that we use in those activities, and all the pollution that's created. Now, why is a bus a better activity? The bus is a lot larger than a car. Well, it's because the bus is taking many, many people to all these different destinations at the same time. So it's a lot more efficient and requires a lot smaller ecological footprint than a single person driving in a car by themselves. If you were to carpool with one other person, you'd cut that ecological footprint in half. Now, if you look at North Americans, our ecological footprints are so large compared to the rest of the world that if everyone else on the earth lived the same way that we do, we would actually need 2 more Earths to simply supply all the needs that we have and to absorb all the waste that we create. So we as North Americans really have one of the biggest responsibilities to reduce the size of our ecological footprints. So what's one of the best ways that we can do that? The best ways we can reduce our ecological footprint size is to do the 3 R's. And the 3 R's are in order of their usefulness or how important they are. The first one is to reduce. We need to reduce the energy that we use. We need to reduce the amount of products that we buy. We need to reduce the waste that we produce. And that's the first way to help our ecological footprint. If we can't reduce, then the next thing we try and do is reuse. Reuse the products that we buy. Try and buy products that are reusable rather than disposable. We don't want to be throwing things in the trash. And the last one is recycle. Don't just throw things away. Papers, plastics, metals, chemicals, we can recycle those things, and that's another important step. If we're recycling, then we're reducing our ecological footprint and we're having less of an impact on our environment. A lot of people add another R, a 4th R, and I think it's good to have in here. It's rethink. It kind of combines all the other R's. In order to reduce, reuse, recycle, we've got to be rethinking what we're doing in our everyday life. Every choice that we make, you can rethink what would be a better choice. How could I have less of an impact on the environment? And that's the end of the lesson today.